Welcome, fantabulous souls, to Psychically Speaking. I'm Psychic Lisa Ann, your host on this transformative journey of body, mind, and spirit. Join me, a psychic medium and healer, as we explore the wonders of life, share experiences, and grow together. Whether you're new to spirituality, an old soul, an empath, or a seasoned professional, this podcast has something special just for you. So let's dive in and embark on a journey of learning, healing, and personal growth together. So today we are welcoming another very special guest, Marian Massie, and she is the author of Miracles. And this is the Book of Miracles, Karma and Reincarnation Redefined, a handbook for purposeful living. Now, I have to tell you, Marianne, I literally sucked this book down this morning in one sitting because
Oh,
once
wow.
I started reading it, I couldn't put it down. And one of the things that I love about this is I feel like I could have said this word for word. And I think that is one of the things that I am noticing so much. And one of the entire purpose of doing this podcast is that everybody's saying the same thing, right? It's the same tools, it's the same technique that we use. There's no like magic secret potion that one person has that someone else can't use. So I want to jump in. You have been in your field for over 30 years.
Yes,
You are a certified hypnotherapist and you also do success coaching.
right.
So, do you want to just tell us, just briefly, how you got involved in the hypnotherapy and the success coaching?
Well, it ties into my book and everything that I wrote in the book. I have always been a seeker. I've always used spirit as a guide and a teacher. So when I was looking for my purpose, I didn't even know there was such a thing as hypnotherapy. I kept asking inwardly what would be my purpose and something that I could do for the rest of my life with joy. And I just held that. And I did everything outwardly to find out, I might want to open up a, business, and that didn't work. And then one day someone just told me about hypnotherapy, and it just was like, oh, well, let me look into that. I mean, again, that was back, and I was in the South, back in the time when they didn't do hypnotherapy. And I remember doing lectures when they would think I was, a witch or a voodoo person. And so I just took to it, and it was really guided by spirit.
I had to laugh because there's so many similarities as I'm reading your book. We're both from New York. We were both raised Catholic. I've had the same thing. And I say this about everybody. I think, a lot of times people go, oh, intuition or listening to my inner voice, like I don't believe in that, or I've never had that experience. But then once you really start talking to them and explaining what that really is, I have never to this day met someone who has not had a psychic or intuitive experience or had that guidance in some way, shape, or form. So I know, without going into the whole story, because of course I don't want to give away the book. I want you to read it and buy it.
Hope it has,
But
come on.
yeah. But can you just talk a little bit about the first time that you remember, and not, you don't have to go into detail, but the first time you remember like hearing that voice or that guidance, what that was like for you?
I will tell some of the stories in the book. I remember, because the title of my book is Miracles, Karma, and Reincarnation Redefined. Um, Everybody nowadays hears about reincarnation and karma, but they don't really utilize it during their daily life. And that inner voice, I remember it when I was very young, and remember hearing a voice saying that there is more than this lifetime. And it was just an absolute knowing. And it just kept with me through many different phases of my life. So that was one of the first memories.
I love that. And I love, I literally marked my little pages. I had to use a napkin because I was starting to use a piece of paper. I ran out of paper, so I moved into a napkin. You were talking in the beginning of the book, which I think is really important, and it's something that we absolutely have to address because you and I, we've been in the field for about the same time, and we are living in such a different world. And there's always been challenges, and there's always been stress, but we have reached a whole nother level of negativity because of social media and technology and the way that we are just bombarded every single day. So I love in the beginning of the book, you talk a little bit about negativity and giving that people a challenge to just kind of disconnect from the news for just a week. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I actually had a client that she was just one of many, but I remember this one client. She was incredibly fearful. And I asked her, I said, well, how often do you listen to the news? Oh, and she goes, every day. How long? Oh, an hour, half hour, hour and a half. I said, give yourself a week without listening to the news and see how you feel. Make it something real for yourself. I'm not going to tell you you're going to feel better. Just see what happens. And within that week, she came back. She goes, oh, wow, I feel so totally different. And that is an actual proof for her that thoughts and energy create. And you can be in the captain's seat about what you want to have into your consciousness and what you don't want in your consciousness. And most people, they really don't know that. They don't know that,
Yeah.
this is affecting them, and they're just going blithely, you know, listening to social media, thinking that they're going to get, validation or nurturing from that when they really need to go within. And that's the premise of everything that I've done in therapy and in the books that I write, because this is my third book.
Yeah, and I think that's so important because I think I don't know about you, but one of the things I hear a lot from clients is they feel so out of control, like they don't have control over what's going on. And just that simple act of taking that control and turning off the television so you're not bombarded every day with this negativity is a way to try to take control. And I have to read this because this is something that is very big with me. You write in here on one of the pages, you're just talking about, negativity. I believe it's chapter 3. And you say, when we're talking about bad experiences, we are on this victim mentality quest. And I tell people, sometimes people get upset with me because I say every single day you have to decide, are you going to be the victim or the victor? And it's not about not being kind and compassionate, but it's about teaching people how to pick themselves up and dust themselves off. I read the beginning of your book and some of the experiences that you've had. And I think a lot of times people see us for where we are now, and they don't realize that we've all gone through challenges. There's all things that we've had to overcome. You certainly have had your fill of things. So I love this paragraph. I'm just going to read it quick. You write, take whatever bad experiences you have had and start transforming your perspective and actions. Ask, what can you do now to help yourself learn from this instead of staying in victimhood? This is accountability of the highest order. This is how you change negative karma to positive. That just so resonated with me. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that?
Well, I'm glad that it resonated with you, because I agree with you. We have choices every day, and it's only in this now. There is only now. Regardless of what your past has been, you can look at it as being a victim for me, and not do your work mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and just stay in that victim mode, or go, how can I change my beliefs? How can I change the emotions that have been stuck because of this situation? And if I want to take this higher, because this is a spiritual life, this is just not a physical life. We are here as soul having a spiritual experience. If you want to take it to that, you can do that also. But it's you starting to say, what can I do with this experience to free myself, to become the captain of my life?
And I think that's so important because you talk about the now quite often in the book. You refer back to that. And I know that we go through these phases where people are like, oh, I'm trying to heal my ancestral issues, or, they get so caught up in their past lives, which I do past life work too. It's not that I don't believe in it, obviously I do, but they get so caught up in the past life or the past that they're not creating the now. So can
Right.
you talk about how that all kind of works together? The karma, the reincarnation, and how to use that in the now.
When I have clients that, and I'm not against, having people look at their past lives. I try to help them do it through dreams. But if they're stuck on past lives, they're really not wanting to take responsibility for right here, right now. And we are always creating karma. Some of it is good, some of it is not so good. And when you start taking charge, you can make choices that are more positive. So you can create more positive karma. In essence, also, you're creating what your future is going to be right here, right now, which if and when you need to reincarnate in this physical reality, you're going to have a higher consciousness. If you stay in victimhood, you have a lower consciousness, and you're going to have to repeat a lot of stuff that you didn't want to face. So why not face it? Because you're going to
Right,
face it
right.
one lifetime or another. That is my belief anyway.
Yeah, and I love that because I think it's a balance of, yes, we can look at our childhood, we can look at our past lives, we can look at all these things as tools, but the work is in the present, in the
Mhm.
now moment. And that's
Right.
what I loved, was like a constant theme throughout your book. I also loved you talked about changing your thoughts and kind of like policing your thoughts to see where that negative, or I call it like negative talk, is coming from. But I also loved, because I say this as well, that when you're writing down, I think you called it, let me just see what you referred to it as.
Creation statements or affirmation.
Yes. And you were talking about handwriting as opposed to typing, because I say the same thing. There's so much scientific research about writing things down as opposed to just typing them on a computer. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I know the younger generations, 20s and 30s, they're so used to typing everything. They don't really know the science behind it. There is science. It connects with your brain. Think about it. As you write, you are having, the physical, you can hear yourself, you can see it, but it's also connecting to the subconscious mind. I've written for years different affirmation statements, and it will bring up the negative is in opposition to what your goal is, and you got to celebrate that. It's like, let's say you want, I had a story in there about being a golfer. It's a pretty benign statement. It's like, spirit gave me golf as a passion. I mean, that's really masochistic, but anyway, digress. uh, I couldn't putt to save my life, and that's half of the game. I'd go up there and say, "Oh, I suck at putting," and this is what I'm saying to myself. And I do this for a living. You think you'd get better at it, and then finally, it just dawned on me: I have to change my belief systems around this. So I started working with way I teach people in the book how to work with affirmations really appropriately, because you got to start again where you are at, right here, right now. And that's what I did. And I slowly started to say, I'm safe to be a better golfer. I'm worthy to be a better golfer. And then I looked at what was happening in my daily life, and someone suggested a different kind of putter for me, which actually worked. And now I can approach putting. Am I Tiger Woods or anybody else that's a pro? No, but I'm good at what I can do, and I enjoy it. But it all started with me changing my beliefs around that, right where I am, right here, right now.
Right. And I have to tell you, I love that you shared that story because, again, I think people think whether it's a spiritual path or whether it's, mindset or whatever it is, I think they think, oh, once you get it, that's it. You never have a negative thought. But it's a constant kind of like patrolling of your own thoughts, right? Because sometimes that negativity comes in and you don't even realize you're doing it, right?
Well, we're in a planet, a consciousness that is bombarding us all the time with some heavy energy. And so
Yeah.
you may not even be aware of how much you're absorbing. And then also, in my experience, I found as I grow in consciousness, let's say that I'm feeling more worthy, having more love, I will also be aware of thoughts that are in opposition to that might be a little bit more subtle than it was 15, 20 years ago, but it's
Mhm.
still in opposition to what I want as my goal, which is more love and to be more loving. And that's what people got to understand, like what you talk about, the policing.
Mhm. And how I know you work a lot with karma and reincarnation. So, what do you want people to know about how that impacts your daily life? We talked a little bit about not getting stuck in that, but staying in the now. So, how does that impact their daily lives?
Well, first of all, I'm going to tell your listeners how I started to write the book because it has everything to do with this. And there is this story in there, but it was about 25 years ago. I don't like to write.
Mhm.
It does not come naturally to me. I never thought about doing it as a kid. I know a lot of people are like, oh, let me be a writer. No,
Right.
never entered my mind. And I had this incredible, vivid spiritual experience dream where it was prophetic. They said, you're going to be writing 2 books to raise, or 3 books to raise people's consciousness. And in the dream, I'm looking around going, me? I can't spell. I don't
Mhm.
want to do this. And then shortly after that, I started to just record some of my dreams down in my computer. And all of a sudden, the book just downloaded. The first book just downloaded. So it's been a while since my last book, and I thought I was done. And then all of a sudden, I had this kind of a creative, yeah, apathy last year. And I just kept asking Spirit, what do you want me to do? And it's like all of a sudden I heard this again, write another book. I said, I don't want to write another book. And yes, write another book. And I kept seeing that a lot of people were wanting to know about reincarnation, wanting to know about karma. And I thought, I really need to educate them about what it's all about. And then the title Miracles came in a contemplation. Because when you do start living your life from that spiritual perspective, you start noticing miracles. You start seeing spirit work with you. And that in and of itself starts to change your karma. And you will know that since you're changing your consciousness, what your next reincarnation is going to be better than what you could have if you didn't do this.
And why do you think it's so important for people to remember that they are souls and just not their physical body?
You don't have to, but if you do, then you get the whole reason you're here. And you speed up your awareness, your joy, the love, and you get to see what my one good friend calls the woo-woo moments. It's like, wow, spirit really is talking to us all the time. But if you don't do that, if you just get into the mundaneness of life, for me anyway, there'd be such an emptiness compared to connecting more and more with the divine. And it's always there. Divine is always there. It's our ability to receive it, to accept it. And when we start to focus that we are soul, we're accepting it more.
I know you talk a lot about anger in the book, and I
Mhm.
want to address that a little bit because I do think, everything's about vibration, and that vibration of anger is a very heavy kind of vibration. And you talk about the different reasons why people hold on to anger. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's really, really significant.
Yeah, it's interesting. People don't want to admit that they're angry. And I say, well, you got to, again, start where you're at. If you don't admit it, then you can't change it. And you're going to have all your emotions in this human body, even though you're working at it spiritually. When you start to realize that maybe you want to punish yourself or somebody else, and I give them tools in the book to help let go of the need to punish and even to recognize that, then they're able to let it go more. Or it keeps you tied to the person or situation. I mean, I'm sure your listeners have been in relationships where they're angry at the person or their parents, and it really, even though they want to let it go, they're tied to it.
Right.
That's the way they've survived. Maybe they've had a very bad childhood, which a lot of us had, and on some level they have survived by, either stuffing their anger or projecting their anger. So those are just some of the ways that once you realize that there is anger, you have tools, which I really go through each one.
Yeah,
Uh,
you really do. You address each one of the reasons why the anger can be there, and you actually give some really good exercises to kind of help remove that and release some of that anger.
right. Because it can self-sabotage you like crazy. There's another story in there where this gentleman came to me, and it can be so unconscious. He wanted to just, become better at his business, and he was self-sabotaging it. He wasn't
Mhm.
doing any kind of marketing, and if he wasn't going to do any more marketing, he was going to go under. And I told him, I said, you've got all the signs of, unconscious anger. And he goes, I don't feel angry. I said, well, that's because it's unconscious. I said, you're paying me money, let me help you, and
Right.
we'll work with the anger. And so through the hypnotic MP3, I worked with not any kind of motivation whatsoever. Worked with releasing the anger regarding um, why he was angry. And he was angry unconsciously because he got fired for being ethical. And he said, well, I dealt with it, but he really didn't. So he came back the next week, and without talking about motivation at all, his motivation increased 50%. So,
And I love that story in the book because I think that we have become a TikTok self-diagnosing society, right? And I think that I loved that particular story because reading that from the outside looking in, you would think, oh, his problem is he's not motivated,
mhm.
right? So he would be looking things up, or, I'm using as an example, like someone would be looking things up and watching, TikTok videos on motivation. And that had nothing to do with the core of what the issue was. And that's why people work with success coaches and people that do mindset and all of this stuff, because sometimes you're not seeing what the core of the issue is. So that was actually one of my favorite stories that you shared in the book, because
What
it really showed how sometimes you're not even aware of what the core of the issue is.
that is the whole premise of the book, is to help people become aware of what and how they're living. So they
Mhm.
become more conscious, they can create what they want more and go in the direction that they want more. If
Mhm.
now that man knows that when he's self-sabotaging, not knowing what to do and not doing it, that's self-sabotage. He's probably got unconscious anger. So he's much more
Right.
conscious than he was before.
And it's amazing how sometimes people are so focused on what they think the surface issue is, and they're spending all this time trying to heal that. But then when you get to the core of the issue, it's like the house of cards. All the blocks
Mhm.
just disappear like that. And it's not that you don't have to keep working on things, but it shifts your energy so quickly when you're focusing on the right thing,
Well,
right?
what you just said was very, very good because the shift has to go within,
Yeah.
not without. All change starts within, coupled with outer actions. And you can't have any shift unless you go within first.
That's one of the things I loved about the book, because I just feel like we have too many people out there trying to convince people that everything in their life is someone else's fault. And it's not that bad things don't happen. You know, I use the example one day I was sitting at a traffic light. I remember I was so sick this day and I was running to the store to get some kind of medicine. And I had my pajamas on. Like I'm one of those people, I don't leave the house without my makeup on. Like that's how sick I was. I just like threw a coat on. I have my pajamas on. I'm going to get medicine. I'm at the traffic light. The light is red. And all of a sudden, someone plows into the back of me. This young kid, she had her driver's license for 1 week. She was on her way to college. Now, I didn't create that. I'm not the one that crashed into her, right? So I use this as an example of bad things happen, but I could have played the victim role for the rest of my life and how this, caused all this chaos. Or I just went, oh my God, I had kids her age. And I thought, oh, if that was one of my kids that did that. So I didn't, make a big deal out of it, right? So we're not saying that bad things don't happen and that people don't do bad things. We're saying don't let that become your identity.
That's very true, but I'm going to take it one step further. Everything that happens to us, we created it somewhere, somehow, in a past life or this life. And then you have the choice to be a victim or not. But if you really realize and live that you've created everything in your life, there is no victim consciousness, none. So,
Right.
my life, I'm not going to talk all about it because I want people to read the book.
Right.
So
Right.
I had a hard childhood and I did not take the victim consciousness, but I created that on some level. And I needed that as a spiritual stepping stone to
Mhm.
grow. And that's how I look at things. Because my life in general has had a lot of hard different things in it, but I've grown because of it. And I've never seen it as somebody's done something to me. I have created this on some way or shape or form.
I like what you just said, a spiritual stepping stone, because I feel like sometimes karma and all that gets a bad rap because people look at it as a punishment
Mhm.
instead of a soul experience. So I love that, the way that you just
Not a
phrased that.
punishment. It is helping you become aware of what your actions and thoughts do, because the whole end game is to develop more love, divine love, love in general. And there's times that our actions, we just are unconscious about that.
Mhm.
And that's what karma is, really. It's trying to teach us, not punish us.
Right. Another thing I loved about your book too is you talked a lot about, the way that you get signs and messages and that we always have guidance around us. And, there's always people there to help us. Sometimes they're in the physical form and sometimes it's through messages. And you talked a lot about dreams. So do you want to touch base on that just a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I had a dream about writing books. I've
Mhm.
always been connected to dreams. And in my book, I talk about how you can learn your own dream symbols. Because if you go to a Google or a book and say, this means this all the time, that's just not true. I mean, I'll give the symbol that I got for me. It's like if I dream about cats, I love cats. And that'll be my little thing that says something about love. Well, somebody who hates cats, that's not going to mean the same thing to them. And
I
so they,
love that about you because that is one thing I have said my entire career. Put down the dream book and look and see what it means to you. And I have gotten myself in so much trouble with dream interpretators for saying that. So when I read that, I was like, oh my God, that's too funny. So yeah, I
I had this
totally
client one
feel
time
the
that,
same.
most people, when they think they're, on a cruise ship, people think, oh, fun, vacation. So in my mind, I had that assumption. She came to me with this dream about on a cruise ship. And I said, oh, what is it? Was that, a positive symbol for you? She goes, oh, no. Oh, no. It meant something very negative. And I went, well, that taught me a lot. Everybody has their own symbols. And from learning what she interpreted that to mean, we were able to help her a lot. But yes, you got to find out what your own symbols mean. I give some suggestions, but it's still got to resonate with you.
Very good. Yeah, I think that's very important too. And, how when you're working with people, like what are three ways that you help the clients that come to you? You know, we've
Clients,
talked about changing
yeah,
their negative beliefs and emotions.
right. Clients come to me, whether they realize it or not, because they want to become more conscious. I am not a therapist that I'm very direct with people. And I will tell them, in a nice way, depending on what they're coming in for in the personality type. But I'm not going to, let them keep talking about victimhood. I'm going to say that
Mhm.
you're a victim. So the things I hope I let people understand is how life works, cause and effect, how you can change your belief systems, how you can change your emotions, and if they want the next step of connecting to spirit, how they can do that. And I try to do that with everybody that comes in appropriately.
Mhm. And have you seen a shift in like what clients are more focused on nowadays from like years ago? It just seems with the world being so off balance, it feels to me like everybody's trying to find their happiness, everybody's trying to find their purpose. You know, there's a big shift in when I started Spiritquest years ago, the tagline was when you're tired of just coping with life and you're ready to start living it. Like that was the tagline back in the day. And I feel like we've kind of come back around to that. Like we have the highest level of anxiety and stress. And there's so many studies nowadays. So many people are on antidepressants and just depressed, and it's out of control. So, what do you see?
That's exactly what I see. And again,
Yeah,
that's why I wrote the book, because people aren't going to change unless they start to go within. It's so much an outer focused time now. I mean, it's so funny because we're using social media to contact people.
right, right.
And it's like to market. Okay. I don't even like social media, but I got to do it because that's how
Yeah.
people, see me. And, but my message is to go within. And if they
Mhm.
go within, they won't be as fearful. If they don't buy into all the negativity messages from the media, they won't be as depressed because they're going to start to fill themselves in with something of substance. I think most of this depression and fear is because they're getting disconnected from their spiritual self. I really do. And I'm not talking
I
religion. They're just
Right,
not
right.
connecting to themselves as soul.
I have to tell you, this morning I was making sure my podcast from yesterday got posted, and this woman that I follow, she had a little Instagram story, and she showed like somebody posted a comment like, "Oh, I wish I had a stomach like yours," and she had on the bottom, "Tummy tuck and breast reduction, $30,000." Then she had somebody said, "Oh, I love your teeth." She has all veneers, like $20,000. Then she put a comment, someone said, "You have the best skin." And she put like $600 a shot of treatments of Botox. Somebody else put a comment about her hair, and she said, a monthly hair salon visit, $300. And it was just so authentic the way that she did it, right? Because she said, I wanted to be happy with myself. I'm choosing, it's my money. I get to spend it the way I want. So her message was everybody has the right to pursue what's right for them. And she wanted to feel better about herself. But she was very clear of stop comparing yourself to someone else. Right. And the bottom, she puts nothing is real. It was so funny. And I thought, oh my God, like how awesome and authentic is she? Right.
That's what I'm saying. People are looking outward to make
Yes.
themselves feel worthy
Yeah,
instead of going inside. No one can give you that worth. They can't present it to you.
exactly.
You have to work at receiving it to yourself. And then it just seems like everything else just is not a big deal anymore.
Yeah,
Everybody else has got great teeth or great hair or whatever. It's just, you're not comparing yourself to others. You're feeling secure within yourself. And I just want
exactly.
to do a little shout out too before we go.
Mhm.
If you want to follow me on Instagram, since but I do teach. It's, it's Marian underscore Massie, and it's Marian underscore Massie, Massie.
And we'll also have the information tagged too when I post
Okay,
this as
great.
well, so people can see it. So what is the one thing that you would like the listeners to take with them today? What is the one thing that you think is one of the most important?
Well, something we have not talked about is the way that I work with spirit. I work spirit in my world is light and sound. And that's how the Holy Spirit talks to us. But people think about the light, but they don't talk about the sound. And I work with the word hue, H-U. And it's like, hue. You'll have a lower voice or a higher voice. It doesn't matter. It's working with that, and it starts to change your energy. It fills you up with divine love. And it doesn't matter what religion you are in. That's what I do every day. And I do it more when there is challenges. It is connecting me to what is the essence of life.
And you talk about that in the book, and you also suggest something to do, which I'm not going to say because I want you guys to go out and get this book,
Lots of stories in the book,
Miracles.
not just from me, but from other people too.
Hmm. And it's available on Amazon, correct?
Yep.
Mhm.
It
And they
came
can
out
go on.
#2. The first week it came out, #2.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Congratulations. So what would you say is the one thing you love most about what you do?
Oh, I just get thrilled about helping people become more conscious. I don't know, it just makes my day. It's just, it just tickles me to no end, and to me, making people more conscious or helping them become aware, more conscious is everything that we've talked about. Them
And
becoming their own detective, their own captain, that they can have the tools to do this. I
and don't you find that people are always so much closer to where they want to be than they think they are,
Mhm. It
right?
just, yes, it's just,
So many
I love
times
doing it.
people, yeah, they feel like, because I always yell at my clients, stop saying you're lost. You're not lost, right? People say, oh, I'm so lost. I'm never going to get where I'm trying to
Well, that's
go.
them not
And
taking responsibility for themselves.
yeah, and most of the time they're like this close to being where they want to get to. They're so caught up in what's going on around them, like you said, that they don't realize they're right at the finish line,
Right.
right?
Again, it's them not taking responsibility. That's like, oh, I'm just so lost. I'm over here. Or they don't know how.
Hmm.
If they get the
Yeah.
tools, it's
And I
like,
think
okay,
it's hard sometimes too when you're in the midst of the chaos, you can't always see clearly, right? And
oh,
I think that's why
absolutely.
it's so important to reach out to other people for help, right? Because I
Absolutely.
always say, you're in the forest in the dark trying to find your way out. Those of us who do this kind of work, we're above you looking down, going, oh, yeah, just make a right, a left, and a right, and you're right out of the forest, right?
Well,
So
yeah,
we
you're
can see
objective. It's
clearer.
it's really easy to be
Yeah.
objective about somebody else.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
like you said before, we all do it where we get in that space where we have to watch our thought process and all of that. So, you talk a lot in the beginning of the book about your childhood, but what keeps you going? And I always ask all our guests this because, I do think that life is not always easy, right? And people come up against challenging times. So, what keeps you going during those challenging times?
Two things. I know from everything that I've done that the law of cause and effect is basically karma. What you do in this moment creates. So I know no matter how bad this is, if I start changing my thoughts, my energy, and connecting with spirit, I'm going to come out better somehow. So it gets me through those times. I have tools and I use them, and they have worked all the time.
And I
It doesn't
think
mean it's going to
that's
be instantaneous. It may,
right.
you have to, sometimes it's taken a year, sometimes it's taken months, sometimes days, but cause and effect is real. That is
Mhm.
karma.
And I think sometimes when you're working on something and you find yourself kind of going back to that thing you thought you addressed, you just revisit it again and use the same tools until you get to where you need to be.
The way I describe it is like, let's say that you've worked on your self-esteem for a long time. And as you grow in consciousness, you know, it's still part of the pizza pie, you know, but it may be a different slice of the pizza pie that you still have to address as soul to get to a higher level of consciousness.
I love that. I love that. So the book is Miracles. It is Karma and Reincarnation Redefined, a handbook for purposeful living. And it really, you have some really great exercises in here. And what I like about them is they're short, sweet, to the point. And these exercises in here and a lot of the tips and advice you have, these are things that people can work into their everyday lives. And that's one of
Absolutely.
the things I love, right? Because especially in this day and age, everybody is so busy just trying to juggle this, that, and the other thing. And not everybody has that time to take, a week out of their lives to go on a retreat or to do something. These are simple and effective. If you brush your teeth in the morning, you can squeeze in one of these exercises. And that's one of the things that I
Yes,
loved
that's
about
exactly
this.
right. It's integrating it into your daily life. It's not taking yourself out of your life to go to a retreat, like you said. It's just, okay, it's 5 minutes. You can do that. And I said,
Right. And not that
write
there's
your,
anything
write
wrong
your
with going on a
affirmations
retreat.
on the John.
Yeah, I don't want all the retreat people yelling at me. We're not saying
No, no,
not
no,
go on a
no. But I'm
retreat, but we're
saying
just saying
you've
it's
got to
so
integrate it into
easy.
your daily life.
Exactly. And it becomes such second nature once you get used to doing it. So,
Exactly.
just as we close up, what's one thing that you could say for people to just kind of get started? What's one thing that they can do? Go buy the book.
I would say,
I'll say it for you. Go buy the
go buy
book.
the book. It's not that it really, it's very well priced. I priced it so that anybody can afford it because really, ebook is only $2.99.
Mhm.
The book itself is $9.99, and you are worth that. And I did
Yeah.
that so I could reach the masses. I really
Yeah,
did.
and I love it because, like I said, I mean, I literally read it this morning because I have no memory. So I like to keep things fresh in my mind when I know I'm going to be talking to someone. So it is such an easy read. And I mean, I saved so many pages so I could go back and look at different exercises and stuff. So it's just very well done. And I know our listeners will get a lot of value out of it. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh,
And
well, thank you
just
for having
let
me.
people, yeah, let people know once again how they can get in touch with you. And I'm gonna post it as well, but just
Yeah, on Instagram or Facebook. Instagram is Marian_Massie, and Facebook is Marian Massie. So
excellent.
there you go.
Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed speaking with you, and hopefully we will have you back to delve into some other topics
Oh,
down the
I'd love
road.
to. Love to. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with a friend and hit subscribe. For more about my free live weekly happy hour via Zoom, my work, or visiting my Body, Mind, Spirit spa and gift shop in historic downtown Southern Pines, North Carolina, visit spiritquestnc.com. Remember, life isn't always rainbows and butterflies, but each and every day you have the power to be fantabulous. Embrace that power, let your inner light shine. Until next time, stay empowered and keep embracing life's magic.